Welcome to FRCMedia News for Thursday, February 27th, 2020. I'm Keith Tebow. On this week's show, the City Council gets an update from the administration on Fall River's 5-year financial forecast. We get a look at what voters can expect at next week's presidential primary. And a student club at Bristol Community College is looking to make clothing more locally sustainable. We'll have those stories coming up in just a few moments. But first, let's check in with other news happenings of the week. We bring in Phil Devitt, the digital news editor at the Herald News. Phil, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Keith. Thank you. Good to be with you.
Let's start with what's on a lot of people's minds, not only locally but internationally, the threat of the coronavirus. President Trump on Wednesday evening held a public press conference with Vice President Mike Pence, who's going to be leading the White House's efforts on this, along with federal health officials. Fortunately, here in the United States, Phil, we haven't seen much of a breakout in the virus, but the Centers for Disease Control is thinking that it may become more of a problem here in the United States. But Deborah Allard did a piece this week about local reaction. What are some of our hospitals doing on this issue?
Yeah, so Deb does a lot of health reporting for us here at the Herald News. And in fact, we had been planning to do a localized story on the coronavirus for some time. As you might remember, late last year, started making headlines after supposedly originating in China. But the timing of the story just happened to coincide with the Centers for Disease Control earlier this week, informing the public that it should be taken more seriously here in the United States as the likelihood of it spreading increases. Again, not trying to sound any alarms, but just to check in with local health officials to see what they're doing to prepare for the event that it does become larger scale. So we talked with somebody at South Coast Health who knows a lot about infectious diseases. Dr. De La Cruz is an infectious diseases specialist. He told us that the hospitals in South Coast Health, which includes Charlton Memorial and Fall River, are stocking protective masks and gloves and eye equipment. They already have isolation rooms that can be used in the event of a local outbreak. These are all the same precautions that are taken in the case of any infectious disease, not just this one. Dr. De La Cruz tells us that the staff at Charlton and at the other South Coast hospitals are used to these precautions. They're ready. The staff is trained regularly. The other big thing, Keith, in the news right now is all this talk about coronavirus and what exactly is it. So we're trying to break that down for people as well. As best we can. So a coronavirus is a large family of viruses. Symptoms can range from that of a common cold to more serious respiratory conditions. The novel coronavirus in the news right now, going by the name COVID-19, was first diagnosed in December in China. And there's no vaccine, no approved antiviral medications at the moment, although it looks like various people are working on that. So it remains to be seen what kind of effect coronavirus will have on our region, if any, but South Coast hospitals say they're ready for that event.
Yeah, and I'm sure that in terms of our local hospitals, you talked about some isolation rooms. I'm sure those have been used even when there's a more widespread outbreak of, say, the flu that we hear every year. People get flu shots, but we still hear that flu is rampant every winter. So I'm sure that they may need to use those same types of protocols for something like the flu when there's a larger outbreak than normal.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's still a lot that we don't know about coronavirus, but we know that it's infectious, and that's enough to, I think, get the hospitals looking at the same protocols they use in cases of other infectious disease. That's what Dr. De La Cruz told us this week. And as with any infectious disease, okay, we talked about there's no approved vaccine or antiviral medications, but there are common sense approaches to protecting oneself that the Centers for Disease Control are trying to get out there to people. Stuff as simple as cleaning your hands with soap and water as often as you can, sanitizing frequently touched objects in the home or workplace, covering your nose and mouth with your elbow or a tissue if you're sneezing or coughing. And maybe most importantly, if you're sick, stay home and don't put other people at risk or yourself at risk if you're going to be in a situation where you're going to be around people who are sick.
Yeah, and I know that, when people hear about a virus, especially if it's overseas, and the numbers that we're hearing, over 80,000 globally and 2,700 deaths. In the United States, it's important to note that less than 100 right now have been confirmed with having the virus out of 300 million people. So sometimes people will say, why are you scaring? I don't think it's more of a scare. I think it's just letting people know to keep aware, keep reading, and finding out more on what happens if you are sick, and just take the precautions as needed. All right, Phil, moving on right now to another story that was in the news last week. National Grid is, last week I believe, or the week before, we're looking to shut down power for a 10-hour period to parts of the Highlands, the Upper Highlands, near downtown Fall River, for some repair work. There was some concern by residents that they weren't alerted in time and weather got in the way, but it looks like National Grid is actually going to go forward with that power outage in a couple of weeks on March 11th, from overnight March 10th into the 11th.
That's right. So I think right off the bat, I'll give you the street names if you're ready for them.
Here we go.
It's a bunch of streets, but these are the streets that are going to be affected. Upwards of about 200 residents. Pine, Purchase, Rock, High, Cherry, Franklin, Granite, Bank, and 3rd Streets will have power shut off for about 10 hours overnight, starting on Wednesday, March 11th. Around 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. on Thursday, March 12th. So that's what National Grid is saying at this point. The reason behind it, the company said last week in an email circulated among city officials, was to provide new service to a 4th Street apartment complex. In a news release or a message to customers earlier this week, I believe they said that they working on the neighborhood electrical distribution system, which is I think another way of saying that. Again, leaving 200 customers without power. You mentioned, Keith, in mid-February, this work was supposed to be done, but the company canceled it due to cold temperatures, not wanting to leave people shivering overnight. And that came as a relief to some residents, not only because of the temperature warning, but because some of them had complained to the city and to the company that they hadn't been given a full week's notice that the work was supposed to happen, which they're supposed to receive. So with this announcement earlier this week, they now have a week's and then some notice of the work to come. And it remains to be seen if that will be pushed off again due to weather that week in March. But otherwise, it looks like all systems go. Yeah,
we've had a great winter in terms of our temperatures. Temperatures have been very mild, above normal, and lack of snow this winter. So hopefully that March 11th, March 12th date will be amenable. They can get their work done with little disruption for the residents, and we'll all move on. All right, Phil, what's coming up over the next few days?
So we have an interesting piece coming up in the Sunday Herald News. Lizzie Borden, of course, has been big business for the city between the bed and breakfast that was her former home, Maplecroft on the verge of opening to the public as well. But in our Sunday story, we're looking beyond Lizzie Borden at some other true crimes that have taken place, crimes that have taken place in Fall River within the last century, and how those might now be used to attract eyes from the outside and possibly more tourists to the city. It's an interesting story. Peter Jasinski worked really hard on it, and we'll have it for you Sunday.
All right, sounds good. All right, Phil, we'll talk next week. Take care. We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the MassHire Fall River Career Center. Office Manager, Arbor Counseling Services and Senior Care, located at 1082 Davall Street, is looking for a full-time office manager with experience in managing office procedures in an outpatient partial hospitalization program. Job number 132-42278. Cook, St. Anne's Hospital, located at 795 Middle Street, is looking for a full-time food and nutrition cook, responsible for the preparation and storage of hot and cold food items for the cafeteria, patient meal service, special functions, and outside programs. Job number 132-42912. Khmer interpreter. Bay State Interpreters Incorporated is in need of a full-time Khmer interpreter responsible for listening to, understanding, and translating spoken and written statements from one language to another. Job number 132-46866. Star, located at 386 Stanley Street, is looking to fulfill the following full and part-time positions. Medical assistant, job number 132-46811. Recovery support navigator, job number 132-46897. Century Paving Construction, located at 167 Hyacinth Street, is also looking to fulfill the following full and part-time positions. Heavy equipment foreman operator, job number 132-46792. Asphalt foreman operator, job number 132-46791. For more information on these or other positions, visit MassHire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the MassHire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
At this week's Fall River City Council Finance Committee meeting, councilors had an opportunity to ask questions of Acting City Administrator Mary Sahadi on Mayor Coogan's 5-year capital improvement and financial forecast plans. Within the document is a budget for the fiscal year that begins in July that currently calls for a $4.7 million deficit. Mrs. Sahadi says the administration is in the early throes of setting up next year's budget, and the spending plan is still a work in progress.
This particular document is extremely conservative when it comes to the revenue projections. For an example, Hope Health has just recently opened in terms of recreational, and there are no dollars included within this document here with regard to revenue, both the impact fee and the excise from Hope Health. So I'm anticipating that when we have the final document put together, there'll be at a minimum $1 million of revenue that we can anticipate in fiscal 21 from that organization. We are still, as most of you know, negotiating with 3 of the unions, the fire union, the police union, as well as the Teamsters, and so their increases, although there are placeholders included within this budget to cover both the 20 and 21. Normally, we would not be including the prior year in the budget. We would be coming to you to take those dollars from the prior year free cash. But that is included in here just for simplicity's sake of maintaining what I refer to as the worst case scenario, because I want to look at it from what is our worst case prior to going to meet with the departments and really look at what their needs are, look at what their increases are over the prior year, and whether or not there's in fact a need for those expenditures.
The video is courtesy of our colleagues at FRG-TV. Ms. Sahadi also said the city is looking to find ways to minimize an increase in health care costs and assured the councilors that the budget will be balanced when presented with the spending plan in late spring. Massachusetts votes in the presidential primary this Tuesday, March 3rd. Polls will open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. This week, Fall River voters had the chance to vote early during hours set at Government Center. Election Commission Chairwoman Kelly Souza Young said early efforts saw about 100 voters a day coming to the polls.
They get treated like an absentee. They vote, put their name on the ballot. Well, we actually have labels for them. So they put their name on the label. The name's on the label. They seal it in there. They go to the polls and they get voted. They get signed in like they actually went to the polls to vote, and they get fed through the machine. We have Democrat, Republican, Green Rainbow, and Libertarian. Plus, we also have ward committees and state committee men and state committee women for all 4 parties. I'm hoping it'll be a great turnout. We're hoping at least, 30 to 40%. I know the presidential election, it was at 62%. So if we can get that, that'd be great.
Voters will be able to take advantage of early voting once again at the November presidential election. Fall River Mayor Paul Coogan will be one of 5 Bristol Community College alumni to be recognized at the college's annual Bristol Awards program on Thursday, March 12th. Mayor Coogan will receive the college's highest alumni honor, the Paragon Award. Tickets for the event are still available by visiting bristolcc.edu/Bristol Awards. Also at Bristol this week, the Seeds of Sustainability Club hosted a clothing swap event that allowed anyone to drop off a clean, used piece of clothing in exchange for another.
85% of our clothing ends up in landfills, and when we donate them to the boxes around town, most of that gets sold to third world countries. So we wanted to do something to kind of slow down the fast fashion industry, and this is what we decided to do. Students and faculty and community members can bring their old unwanted clothes and swap them out for something that they might wear. We plan on doing this about every other month, so in April we want to have another event.
I had seen a couple of signs about a clothing swap put on by the Seeds of Sustainability, and I kind of forgot about it until I walked through here, and I pulled up, and she was very nice enough to let me know that pretty much anything that you can grab here is for free. So I definitely found some nice treasures, and I didn't have to pay for it, which was really cool. I think that what they've got putting on here is very, very beneficial because a lot of the clothing either goes, in the trash, but one man's trash is another man's treasure. So I found a lot of treasure here.
We'll have more FRCmedia news after this.
Thank you for considering a homeless pet today. I hope you enjoy what you're about to see, and as always, please feel free to contact the shelter before coming down to make sure that the pets you're viewing are still available for adoption. We can be reached at 508-677-9154.
Today we have Diamond. She is a 6-year-old boxer mix. She's very friendly. She was an owner's surrender. She would do good with kids 7 and up. I wouldn't house her with any other animals. She does love to play. She likes all kinds of toys. She likes to play tug of war. She likes to go play with the ball, and she loves the squeakers. And she is lovable, and she's really gentle even when she takes snacks. She's a good eater. She eats nice and slow. If you want to come down and meet Diamond, we are located at 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Mass. At Forever Paws Animal Shelter. Because I know she'd love to meet you.
Today we have Aspen. Aspen here is just over a year old, barely not a kitten. He is a very friendly, as you can tell, gray short hair. He's a very friendly boy. As you can tell, he likes his attention. You can also play with him a lot because he's still basically just a kitten. He would be great with other cats, especially around the same age. You can get them romping around your house, that sort of thing. He would also do well with kids. Pretty much any kind of home he would do well, and he's very well adjusted, very friendly. So he should do well even with dogs. So if you'd like to meet Aspen, you can come on down to 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
And finally this week, the Lafayette Durfee House is hosting a special event this weekend to bring awareness to the plight of soldiers serving during the Vietnam War.
This weekend, we're having a Vietnam veterans event. We're going to have the combat gear that a Vietnam soldier wore in the war. We're going to have weapons and accoutrements, and it's kind of inspiring to know what these guys went through. I'm a combat veteran of Vietnam myself, so it brings back a lot of memories, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout. It's been 50 years since I've been home. It was very difficult because we came home, a lot of the guys came home, we were 19 years old, 20 years old, no skills. We usually enlisted right out of the high school, and it was very disappointing when we came home that we were not well received by the American public. And a lot of the guys lost their sense of purpose when we came home. When we were over there, we had a sense of purpose every day, trying to stay alive, keep each other alive. But all of a sudden, we were cut loose, and we came home with to a public that was not very grateful for what we did over there. So we're going to try to just make people aware of what's going on. History classes today at high school level and junior high, they don't teach history like they used to teach it. I know kids that have not even heard of the Vietnam War. In fact, they very seldom hear of World War II. So it's important to know our history and how we come to the status of where we are today. And it was through a lot of sacrifice of people that very well are very unnoticed in this world today.
That'll do it for this edition of FRC Media News. You can watch FRC Media News Thursdays and Fridays at 6 p.m. and join us online on our website, frmedia.org. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. We leave you this week with footage of the implosion of the final smokestack at the Brayton Point Power Station in Somerset. Have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday.